Sometimes life is messy. Have you ever wished you could refocus your mind, home, relationships, and work life? Join us as we use research-based information to make practical changes and simplify life. This is Life Simplified.
Welcome to Life Simplified. I am Joni Phelps, and I'm your host for the day. This month, we have been discussing about fighting the freeze. Our topics have been freezing out friends, defrosting your energy, thawing your New Year's resolution. In today's episode, we will be discussing having fatigue while fighting brain freeze, which brain freeze is really brain fog. In our fast-paced world, it is all too easy to feel worn out, both physical and mentally. Fatigue can creep into our lives, drain our energies and motivation, making even the simplest task feel overwhelming. On top of that, we've all experienced those frustrating moments when our minds just seem to freeze, leading a confused and difficult focus, commonly referred to as brain freeze, brain fog. And I would just go on and say I had this last night, or actually I guess I should say Tuesday afternoon. I knew we was coming to record today, and I left all of my equipment at my office. So I definitely had brain fog during that whole period of time. And so it's okay that you do experience all these things, but we are going to talk about some things, how we can help far as with not having the brain fog and the fatigue as well. So whether you're battling your afternoon slump or struggling to think clearly after a long day, you're not alone. And this episode is for you. Let's jump in and discover how we can break through the fog of fatigue and brain freeze together. Good morning or good day, ladies. How are you all doing today?
Foggy. I'm feeling that brain fog.
Yeah. We was actually just discussing, some things in here before we started, and I think we've all had a little brain fog and fatigue going on this week for all of us. But I want to ask you all a question before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of this episode. Have any of you all ever experienced fatigue while fighting against your brain fog or freeze?
Yes, I'm in it.
Like constantly, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like mine really hits most afternoons. I'm very much a morning person. Now, do I want to get up as early as I do? Not necessarily, but I feel like I'm most productive in the mornings. So by the afternoon, I feel that fog creeping in, like, okay, what do I need to do now that won't require all of my mental energy to get through?
Yeah, I think for me, it is when I have overcommitted myself, or I'll say or I'm completely overstimulated, like too many sounds, too many things, like just a lot going on, and I can't focus in.
I'm going to ditto that as well. My normal afternoons, and then all of those things combined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think being overcommitted, work and home, and just having a lot of extra responsibilities by the end of the day, you're just like, whatever we can find for supper is whatever we're eating, whatever's in the cabinet.
We had one of them last night.
Yeah,
thanks.
it happens.
For sure.
It definitely happens. But it makes it easier, just you don't have to think about it because you're in that fog. So just pre-plan for those days is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
If you
we call those every man for themselves night.
Yeah.
Like we're like, it's every man for themselves, every human for themselves. Just find what you can find, and more power to you.
Yeah, so be prepared because it's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. That is a really good point. Like, you're like, okay, so I have so much energy this week. I'm going to cook every night. Sometimes we have those. I have those occasionally, not very often. And then the next week I'm like, oh man, like all my energy is gone. What are we doing for supper tonight? I don't know. So if I planned ahead, that would work out better.
Most definitely. My kids, they make fun of me all the time, because I do forget a lot here lately, not here lately. It's been a while. I forget things, and I didn't used to be that way. Or I'll be sitting and talking to you all or some other people, and I'm like, I don't even know what I was fixing to say. I just lose train of thought of everything or forget how to say something, but sometimes that happens in life, and when I'm like you all, when I'm overstimulated or I've really overcommitted myself, or I can't think, I can't think my thoughts through out very well. And it sometimes can be very frustrating with that.
I think too, it's if you tend to be like the schedule keeper, the go-to person in your family, it's those moments when you have all the different people asking you all the different things at one time. Like, where is this? When is that? What time do I have to go to this? Do I need this thing? Is that person coming? And you just can't answer any of it because it's too much, too fast, and you kind of just, you know what? I have no idea. Everyone keep your own calendar, please.
And I've started doing that. My parents are older. Me and my sister try to take care of them as far as medical stuff and everything. I do have another family member that is also far as have a lot of health issues that we try to help as well. Not only that, my kids, my husband, my work, everything. And so I have really started stepping back and saying, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to keep up that with yourself because it's just very overwhelming on a good day. Yeah. And then when you're struggling to keep it all together for yourself and try to take care of everybody else, it can be very challenging. According to the Cleveland Clinic, fatigue is a state of physical and or mental exhaustion that depletes one's energy level and the ability to function. It can result in various factors, including lack of sleep, stress, poor nutrition, and also prolonged period of physical or cognitive activities. So it affects us in so many different ways, throughout our day and day-to-day life. It does hinder us. Physical effects, may be far as lack of energy, muscle weakness, simply task may become, exhausting and leads to reducing activity levels. When we get home, we don't want to do nothing. We get to work, we don't want to do nothing. We are off on the weekend, we don't want to do nothing. It can affect our day-to-day life when you are experiencing as far as that fatigue. Also, it affects the mental effect of it as well. It can impair, our cognitive functions such as, our attitude, our memory, our decision making, forgetfulness, me right here, and also reduces our critical thinking. A lot of times I try to cook when my husband is at home because, he's gone all week. And so I try to give him a good home cooked meal when he's at home. And probably about 2 months ago, I would cook breakfast, lunch, dinner. I was always in the kitchen on weekends, and I just said, I'm done. I will cook you breakfast. And my husband does not expect anything at all from me, at all. For me, I feel that he needs it because he's not at home to receive it throughout the week. But that's me, not him. But I've got where I'll say, I'm going to cook you breakfast and we'll do lunch. But as far as that, I'm not cooking, all 3 meals. So for me mentally, to take that off for me has helped. High levels of fatigue can cause a decrease in our performance at work. It could increase mistakes and also our motivation. How many of us has no motivation, throughout the day, throughout the week? And sometimes we don't realize that we are fatigued when we are, so it affects so much more in our bodies that we truly realize that it does.
So I've got a funny story. Not funny, but like one of those moments where you're like, I'm clearly fatigued, but I didn't realize I had gotten to that point. I was talking to my husband the other day and I was like, this is so silly, but the most simplistic task was just like I just couldn't. Like, I knew I needed to do it. I knew it was going to take me like 2 seconds to do if I would just do it, and I couldn't. And I had this important paper I needed to print so that I could scan it to send it to someone. I needed to fill it out, so it had to be printed first, and it couldn't be filled in online. And I had tried to print it one day, and our office printers were down. So I printed it. It was a smeared mess. We were waiting for the tech to come clean it up. So I was like, okay, well, I can't do it. For 2 more days, I just didn't print it. I could have printed it at my house. We have a brand new printer we just got for Christmas. Totally hooked up. No big deal. Would have taken me 2 seconds. I take my laptop home every day, so it would not have been a hard task. The next day, our printers at work were perfectly fine. Literally just had to press a button and pull this thing on there. And I told him, I was like, why is this so hard? Like, why am I struggling to just print this paper? Like, it's not the end of the world. It should not have been that overwhelming. He was like, just send it to me. I'll print it. And I was like, that's more work than just printing. Like, why? I just need to. So I finally did. But just that acknowledgement that I realized I was literally putting off the smallest of small tasks because my brain was just like, I cannot do anymore at all. And I just put it off. Like, you would have thought that I had to climb Everest to print this paper. So it has now been printed and sent to where it needs to be. But my goodness. And I feel like to me that is like the biggest picture of when you just get yourself to that point where you're like, oh, and I'm still doing all the other things, much larger tasks because I have to, but that one was like, nope, that's going to send me over the edge. Can't do it.
Well, and that one probably, it needed to be done, but did it have to be done right then? Just like everything else had to be done right then. So I think that's what makes it so hard is all of these things sneak up on you. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, when you say yes to something, and we talked about burnout, you know that you realistically probably can't do all of the things that you're saying yes to and still take time for yourself. But sometimes it's just hard not to. So then it sneaks up on you that you're so exhausted and why you're so exhausted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that goes right back to what I was saying earlier. You know, this could be also you're missing them deadlines. Tiffany, if you wouldn't have, printed off that paper in that time period, you would have missed the deadline if it had a deadline. Right. It affects the quality of the work that we put out. So according to the Cleveland Clinic, brain fog refers to as a temporary state of mental cloudiness that can result in confusion, forgetfulness, lack of focus, difficulty processing information. It is not a formal medical diagnosis, but it's often linked to fatigue, stress, and underlying.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yes, what you said.
Yeah. Also after I was, researching this and getting information about this topic, and I got to thinking, how many people truly want to admit that they do have brain fog? Because if somebody thinks, you may already know that they experience that just by the way they interact with you. So if you do have this, it's okay to admit that you have this. It also impacts our daily lives. It affects our cognitive decision making, our emotional effects, and just overall brain fog. When it occurs, our daily routine may feel disrupted and also cause challenging in maintaining productivity along with engaging in social activities. When you're tired and you are so fogged up with your brain, you may not want to engage in anything outside of your workplace or even family functions as well. So going back to what the cognitive difficulties may include, struggling with concentration, decision making, recalling information, making it hard to complete tasks effectively. For our emotional effects, brain fog can lead to feeling of anxious and low self-esteem, particularly when it refers to the work and social interactions.
With the emotions, I think we all know when we're tired that we tend to feel our emotions on a larger scale. And when you're fatigued, it's like the ultimate tired of body and mind. And so our emotions feel so much bigger and so much more consuming, I think, than when we are running on all cylinders and we're running really well and we're feeling healthy and we're feeling well rested and good nutrition and all of those things. And I think we notice it really well in our kids, when we're like, they're having a meltdown and we're like, oh, it's nap time. Like, we know they're tired, like they need a rest, but we do the same thing, but we forget, to give ourselves grace that we need nap time. We're missing nap time. We need to get it together. We need some rest. Like, we're just feeling our feelings. But also, like, hey, I need to check in with myself here. Like, maybe I'm not practicing good self-care. Maybe I'm not taking some time outs for myself. And maybe the emotion I'm feeling isn't as big as how it feels at the moment. It's still valid. I may still feel angry. I may still feel sad. I may still feel nervous, but perhaps I feel those things in a little bit higher of a level than I would were I not so fatigued. And so I think all roads lead back to self-care. All roads lead back to, if I'm experiencing brain fog frequently, if I am mentally and emotionally fatigued, what am I not doing to take care of me? And how do I start implementing that? I think really, to me, brain fog is a wake-up call. Like, you're on the wrong road here and we got to do something different. And so for us, hopefully, we don't have the tantrum in the floor when we've missed out and we're exhausted. Maybe sometimes we get to that point, but let's try not to. It's not cute. But we do have the brain fog. And I think it's like that moment where you're like, it's not coming together. And I've got to do something totally different. And clearly, all four of us recognize that we are either currently there or we've been there. So how do we get out of there, you know?
Well, that's good that you said that, because here in just a minute, we're going to talk about some tips of how we can, far as, make the brain fog a little better and the fatigue as well. So we'll talk about them tips here in just a little bit. But I also want to just bring out the point that fatigue and also brain fog, they coexist together. The cycle can be very difficult to break, but it can be. So some of the same symptoms that fatigue and brain fog, far as, share together, maybe our mental sluggishness, emotional effects, reduces energy levels, and also has difficulty performing daily tasks. That, it can be hand in hand together with the fatigue and brain fog. So how many of these symptoms do you fight against each day? Are you having difficulty making the decisions?
With decisions, there's so many decisions to make in a day that once you get to your point where you're done, even the smallest decision is too much. We talked about supper earlier. Like, if I haven't already decided what we're doing for supper, by the time I get home, that's just one decision that I can no longer make. I don't know. Someone please tell me what we're having for supper. And even better, tell me what I'm not doing for supper. Like, tell me what I'm not going to fix. What are you going to fix, or where we're going that I don't have to do it?
What can I pick up on the way?
Yeah. No, I don't even want to do that. I don't want to pick it up. I don't want to pick it up, and I don't want to call about it. I just want
order it online.
Yeah, I just want it to be there, be ready to go.
And the best of days. So yesterday was like one of those days where I was like, Thank you so much, husband. Thank you. I knew what I was going to make for dinner. I had it at home, and I was like, okay, did I really want to? Not a lot, but it was there, and I was good. And then I get a text at like late afternoon, almost time to be off work, and the husband's like, hey, me and you go to the Mexican restaurant tonight? And I was like, yes, sir. Thank you so much. And so impromptu date night, so good for the soul. Like, just really highly suggested. So if you're listening and you have a person that may be feeling a little brain fog or fatigue, what a lovely way to just be like, hey, let's take a break. Let's just don't.
I think something we haven't talked about, but I realize more, is the physical aspect of it. Because I remember it was a few weeks ago, and my husband was like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, my body is tired.
Yes.
Like, it's just like, I had no energy, and you mentioned energy was one of it. And so it wasn't anything about me trying to decide anything. It was just, I couldn't do it. Like, I didn't want to play with my kid. I was just like, I just wanted to lay there on the couch and not do anything. Of course I couldn't do that, but just realizing, that's part of it too. 'Cause whether that may come first and then you're like, oh yeah, that's what it is, or whichever, vice versa, but that's to notice that that's part of it as well.
Yeah, I relate to that too. And I'm one of those odd people that I can get up really early and get going, but I can also stay up really late. And I'll just squeeze all the day into all of it. And maybe somewhere in the middle is where I'm like, I need a timeout. But I've noticed on days that I'm feeling really fatigued, it's like early in the evening and I'm like, I'm tired. I want to go to bed. And normally I can just kind of stay up. I get all the other people asleep and then I'm doing my own thing because I have quiet. But yeah, there's been a few days that I'm like, I am done physically.
Yeah, definitely. It affects our day-to-day lives, in all aspects of it. Identifying fatigue and brain fog often comes down to the underlying cause of each one of these conditions. What is it? What is making me be fatigued? What is it that's making me have brain fog? Kind of looking back on everything. What am I doing in my life that I need to back away from to help you not have to, have fatigue in your life? What can I do differently? How can I change? Is a very big key thing of how can I identify what it is. So as I said a while ago, we're just going to talk about some tips that could help you far as to get through fatigue and also your brain fog. And these are things that we should be doing anyway. They're tips like aim for being able to sleep 7 to 9 hours. Amanda's a new mother to a newborn with a toddler. She's more likely not going to get that 7 to 9 hours. But maybe having a partner say, hey, you take him tonight, I'll, let you get some sleep. Just prioritizing your sleep.
That's one of the things that sometimes it's easier said than it is done. Trying to get that sleep routine so that your body is at least calming down and ready to rest, whether or not you are asleep. That's also important too, to get that wind down routine.
I think too, knowing yourself as you change and go through different phases of life, because I've always been one that like 5 hours and I can roll, like I'm good. But I'm noticing now, like I need a little bit more. I can still function pretty well on that, but I know it's not the best decision for me. So working really hard to get closer to that 7-hour mark, and seeing that the days that I do that, it does tend to make a difference.
Another thing is staying hydrated. Drink plenty of water throughout the day, to prevent far as us being dehydrated, which can contribute to fatigue and also cognitive issues. Nutrition. I think nutrition was talked about a while ago. That is a very big one. It's eating a balanced, rich meal and whole foods, including fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins. Avoid the extra sugars and processed foods that can lead to energy crashes, because you're got all these extra sugars and carbohydrates, and then all of a sudden you're going to crash. So try to avoid that, especially around bedtime routines. Another one is limited caffeine.
We needed to survive.
I was like, no, we're not doing this.
I mean, I try not to get much caffeine, like in the evening, no, because I don't want to be up. But in the morning, yes, please. Like, don't really look at me until I have at least a couple sips of coffee. Actually, it's funny. There are times because I've told y'all multiple times on here, my husband and I have coffee together in the morning, and he makes it, and I'll go in there and sometimes I'm just sitting there looking like a zombie, I assume, because I can't see myself, but that's what I picture. And he'll just look over at me and be like, take a couple sips of that. I'm like, okay, I gotcha. So, yeah, it's not going anywhere. not in the morning, but limits are good. Moderation is key.
Right. And you may not be drinking just tons and tons of coffee. You've got your morning coffee. Yeah. And I think I can do morning coffee, but I know after a certain time that now I have to stop, right? Because while I may feel like I need it, then I'm going to regret it later. So
another thing, we talked about this just a minute ago, regular physical activity. Mm-hmm. Incorporate regular exercise. Also, mindfulness and stress management. Practice mindfulness techniques such as meditation, deep breath exercises, yoga, and it helps far as reduce our stress and improves our focus. And the last one, take a break. If you need to take regular breaks during work to rest your mind or even, just recharge, you need to take them small breaks so you can do this. All of us gets lunch breaks. Sometimes we may not get to lunch break the same time every day, but if you need to go out to your car and just take a minute, maybe take a 5-minute, nap if you can do that. It's okay though to step back away from everything to, just clear your mind and just recharge.
Yeah, I know around my office, sometimes I'll get up and I'll walk up front and I'll be like, I just need to move. I just need to change the scenery for a few minutes, get up from my desk, get my body moving so I can reset. And that's important. I think people forget that. You need to do that ever so often because we can get working on our project and we're doing really well, but so far in, you're no longer being productive until you do a reset. You just need that moment.
Yep.
It's a brain break, apparently. So
Yes.
they do it.
Yes, yes.
I've adapted that.
It's a movement snack.
It is. They do that at my kid's daycare. He'll be like, "We did a brain break today," and it took me forever.
I love
I'm like,
it.
what are you talking about? And then he was like, "We did this," and it was like some yoga move, and I'm like, I got you. But apparently, there's video. So if you're a
Yes.
YouTuber
Yes.
for kids, there's brain breaks, and I guess they do that.
They do,
I
yeah.
love
At
that.
daycare.
I was actually at a preschool
so-
yesterday, and they had one right before my lesson. So
Right. So maybe we need adult brain breaks.
Just being able to recognize what these two things are and that the steps that you can take to help them better. Just remind yourself that it's okay that you are experiencing this.
Yeah, I think too, you know what stage of life you're in and what's on your plate. And I think the really valuable thing is not thinking I'm going to completely eliminate fatigue and brain fog and it's never going to be in my life and I'm going to do all these things, because that's a lot of pressure in and of itself to think that. So the goal is never like, I'm going to be perfect at this and I'm not going to let myself get fatigued and I'm not going to be the 3-year-old having the tantrum on the floor. No, the reality is we're going to do better. We're going to try really hard to practice self-care and brain breaks and nutrition and sleep and all the things. But we're also going to cut ourselves some slack when, that just doesn't always happen. So it's always like, let me make some progress. And that's a win. So, because I feel like sometimes we talk about these things and we feel so defeated and we feel like, gosh, I can't get there. Like I know what the finish line looks like that I would like, but I can't get to that. And I don't think that that's really the goal. I think the goal is just let me have less fatigue. Let me have increased energy. That doesn't mean it's perfect energy. Let me only have a moment of brain fog every once in a while, not all day, every day, where I'm not sure what exactly I'm supposed to be doing. So I think just remind yourselves, and I think also for us, because we talk about this, we're pretty transparent. We try to be really honest. We know we're not perfect, but we are trying really hard to do our best to do better.
So thank you, ladies, so much for discussing this topic today. Ways that you can help us get the word out about Life Simplified podcast. Find us on our Facebook or Instagram page. Go like it, share it with your friends. Also, write us a review or rate us. And if you have any questions or topics that you would like for us to cover, please contact us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com or even comment on our Facebook or Instagram page. Thanks for listening. This is Life Simplified.
Thanks for listening to Life Simplified. We are family and consumer sciences agents with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. Contact us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com.